I'm often asked what advice I would give to young people who are just starting in this best of all possible worlds. If you love what you do and you really, really want to do it, then embrace it with all your heart.
You've watched The Sound of Music 100 times. But what if I told you some of its most iconic moments were total movie magic, or flat out wrong? From a near drowning on set to a fake Austrian anthem, this classic hides bloopers, secrets, and behind-the-scenes twists that might just change the way you see it forever. Let's take a closer look. Number 20. Maria had no prior experience playing the guitar. Julie Andrews, who played Maria in The Sound of Music, had no experience with the guitar before filming began. Despite her natural musicality and singing background, playing the guitar while singing proved difficult. To prepare, she had to learn the basics of the instrument, but coordinating both tasks simultaneously was a challenge, especially with the pressure of filming. To calm her nerves during these scenes, Andrews would take small sips of Austrian schnapps. Her co-star, Christopher Plamer, also trained for guitar and vocal parts, but his actual performances weren't used in the final cut. A professional musician and singer dubbed over his scenes, ensuring the musical quality met cinematic standards. This behind-the-scenes fact reveals how even iconic performances often rely on stand-ins and editing magic. Number 19. Kim Karath could not swim in real life. In one of the film's most memorable and charming scenes, the VonTrap family tips over in a rowboat, sending everyone splashing into the water. But behind the light-hearted moment was a real danger. Kim Karath, who played Little Gretel, couldn't swim. The young actress had no water safety experience, yet the scene required her to be tossed into a lake. Julie Andrews was supposed to catch her as they fell, but she lost her balance and fell backwards, leaving Gretel alone in the water. The situation quickly turned serious. Kim swallowed a large amount of water and became sick. She ended up vomiting on co-star Heather Menzies, who was right beside her. Thankfully, the crew acted fast, and Kim was ultimately okay. Number 18. Christopher Plamer didn't enjoy working on the film. While Christopher Plamer's performance as Captain VonTrap is now legendary, his experience filming The Sound of Music was far from joyful. Plamer found the movie overly sentimental and famously nicknamed it The Sound of Mucus. He didn't connect with the film's sweetness and often distanced himself from the cast and crew. His dissatisfaction led him to cope in less than healthy ways. He indulged heavily in food and drink, resulting in noticeable weight gain during production. Costume designers had to constantly alter his wardrobe to accommodate his changing figure. Despite his grumbling at the time, Plamer later softened his views. In later interviews, he admitted he had underestimated the impact of the movie and came to appreciate the joy it brought to audiences. Number 17. The original VonTrap family house was not used in the film. Although the Grand VonTrap house in The Sound of Music feels like a real place, it's actually a clever illusion created by combining multiple locations. The front exterior shown in the film belonged to one building, while the back was filmed at an entirely different estate. Interior scenes weren't filmed in Austria at all. They were recreated on meticulously designed sets in Hollywood. The famous gazebo from 16 going on 17 was built just for the movie and has since been relocated twice. Today, it stands at Hellbrunn Palace in Salzburg and is a tourist attraction. Even scenes that appeared to take place at Nonnberg Abbey were shot on replica sets designed by Boris Levine, whose attention to detail was so precise that many still believe the movie used real Abbey footage. Number 16. The song Adelvvice was not an Austrian classic. Although Adelvvice feels like a centuries-old Austrian folk song, it was actually written in the United States specifically for The Sound of Music musical. Composed by the legendary duo Rodgers and Hammerstein, It was their final collaboration before Oscar Hammerstein's death in 1960. Despite its gentle melody and patriotic lyrics, the song is not part of Austria's historical musical tradition. Still, its emotional impact was so strong that many viewers mistakenly believed it to be the Austrian national anthem or a cherished cultural hymn. Over time, Adelvvice became deeply associated with Austrian identity in the minds of international audiences. Ironically, it's more American than Austrian, having originated on Broadway and later becoming a centerpiece of the film. Number 15. Maria signed over her rights to the film. In 1956, long before The Sound of Music became a global phenomenon, Maria VonTrap unknowingly signed away the rights to her life story for a mere $10,000. A German film producer approached her with interest in adapting her memoir, but claimed, falsely, that German law prohibited paying royalties to non-German citizens. As a newly naturalized American, Maria believed him and agreed to the deal. A few weeks later, the producer returned, offering $9,000 in immediate cash if she would finalize the agreement right then. Needing the money, Maria accepted. She later learned there was no such law, and she had been deliberately misled. Despite this betrayal, Maria did not hold a grudge. In a gracious twist, Rogers and Hammerstein, who were under no obligation, chose to offer the VonTrap family a small share of the profits from the musical and film. Maria ultimately valued the film's message of hope far more than financial gain. Number 14. Maria was hired to teach only one child. Contrary to the film's depiction of Maria arriving to care for 7 children, the real Maria VonTrap was originally hired in 1926 to teach just one child, Georg VonTrap's daughter, also named Maria. This young girl was recovering from scarlet fever, the same illness that had taken her mother's life 4 years earlier. Too weak to travel the 4 miles to school, she needed home tutoring. Georg turned to Nonnberg Abbey for help, where 21-year-old Maria Augusta Kuchera, then a teaching student recovering from her own health issues, was chosen. Her assignment was supposed to last 10 months, after which she planned to become a nun. But as we know, life had other plans. Maria ended up staying far longer than expected, forming strong bonds with the children and eventually marrying their father. Number 13. Casting Julie Andrews as Maria. When screenwriter Ernest Lehman began working on The Sound of Music, he had only one person in mind for the role of Maria, Julie Andrews. Her wholesome charm, strong voice, and vibrant personality seemed a perfect fit. However, director Robert Wise initially considered other actresses, including Grace Kelly and Shirley Jones. That changed when Wise saw early, unreleased footage of Mary Poppins and was instantly captivated by Andrews' performance. Impressed by her charisma and talent, he quickly agreed with Lehman's original choice. Andrews was hesitant at first. She feared the film would be overly sweet, like the stage version, but the filmmakers reassured her they wanted a more grounded, heartfelt tone. She signed on for $25,000, a significant sum at the time. Her portrayal became iconic, bringing warmth, humor, and emotional depth to the role. Number 12. VonTrap was a loving father. The real Captain Georg VonTrap was far more affectionate and kind-hearted than his stern movie counterpart. In The Sound of Music, he's portrayed as a cold, whistle-blowing disciplinarian who keeps his children in rigid military-style order. But according to his children, this was far from the truth. Georg was described as a warm and charming father who genuinely loved his kids. While it's true, he used a whistle to call them and dressed them in sailor uniforms, he didn't force them to march or act like soldiers. In fact, it was Maria, the stepmother, who initially struggled to express affection. Raised in a strict, emotionless environment, she had to learn how to open up emotionally. Johannes VonTrap, the youngest child, once told the BBC that his father was generous and open, not the cold man shown on screen. Number 11. Father Wner was replaced in the movie. One of the most influential figures in the real VonTrap family's story was Father Franz Wner, yet he was completely left out of The Sound of Music. After the family lost their wealth during the Great Depression, they began renting out rooms in their home. One of their tenants was Father Wner, a Catholic priest with a deep love for music. Recognizing the family's talent, he became their musical director and helped transform them from casual singers into a professional group. Maria VonTrap credited him with refining their sound and guiding their performances. He even escaped Austria with them and toured across Europe and America as their conductor. But the film omitted him entirely, replacing his role with the fictional Max Detweiler. The studio feared that showing a priest as the musical mentor would distract from Maria's character arc. In reality, Father Wner was the driving force behind their musical success. Number 10. Maria was portrayed as quiet. In The Sound of Music, Maria is shown as gentle, shy, and sweet-natured, a woman who struggles silently to find her place. But the real Maria VonTrap was anything but quiet. Orphaned young and raised by a cruel uncle, Maria developed a loud, fiery personality. After attending teachers' college and converting to Catholicism, she joined Nonnberg Abbey in Salzburg, where she quickly became a rebellious presence. She later admitted to being horrid at the convent, breaking dishes, talking during silent hours, whistling sacred chants, and even climbing onto the roof. Her high energy and outbursts were in stark contrast to the calm demeanor portrayed on screen by Julie Andrews. Maria's real-life story adds color and complexity to the narrative. She was a spirited woman trying to fit into a rigid system, and her passionate nature eventually became a strength, both in her role as governess and later as the matriarch of a legendary musical family. Number 9. Maria was unsure about marrying Captain VonTrap. In the film, Maria and Captain VonTrap fall in love and marry in a whirlwind romance. But in reality, Maria was deeply unsure about marrying him. When Georg von Trapp proposed in 1927, Maria didn't say yes out of love. She had grown attached to the children and wanted to stay for them, not necessarily for him. Georg was 25 years older than Maria, and though he loved her, the feeling wasn't mutual at first. Maria later admitted she probably would have declined if Georg had proposed directly, but the way he phrased his request, asking her to stay and care for the children, touched her deeply. She interpreted it as a divine sign and agreed. Their love developed gradually after the marriage. This hidden layer to their relationship contrasts with the film's romanticized version, showing that sometimes love doesn't begin with passion. It grows through shared purpose, trust, and time. Number 8. The Trapp family didn't sneak through the mountains. The climactic escape scene in The Sound of Music shows the Von Trapps sneaking away from the Nazis by climbing over the Alps, a moment filled with danger and cinematic tension. But the real story was far less dramatic. The Von Trapp family actually left Austria during the day, boarding a train as if they were heading on vacation. They told neighbors they were going to America to sing. Their escape was peaceful, organized, and without any mountain treks or secret hideouts. Captain VonTrap had secured Italian citizenship due to his birthplace, which helped ease their travel. They first went to Italy, then London, and eventually sailed to the United States. Alongside them were Father Wner and their secretary. Once in America, they toured as the Trapp family singers, and later settled in Vermont, opening a lodge that still exists today. Number 7. The VonTrap family wasn't wealthy as portrayed in the movie. In The Sound of Music, the VonTraps live in a luxurious villa with servants and no financial concerns. In truth, their financial situation was far more fragile. Like many during the Great Depression of the 1930s, the VonTraps lost much of their wealth when their bank collapsed. They could no longer afford staff and began renting out rooms in their home to survive. Singing, which had always been a family pastime, slowly turned into a source of income. Initially, Captain Georg VonTrap was uncomfortable with the idea of performing publicly. He didn't want to expose his children to the spotlight. His daughter Eleanor later said it almost hurt him to see his family on stage. But out of necessity, they embraced music as a livelihood. Their talent eventually earned them first place in a major Austrian music competition in 1936, launching their career and setting them on a path toward international fame. Number 6. The children were given the wrong names in the movie. In The Sound of Music, the VonTrap children are given fictional names and personalities like Liesel, Friedrich, Louisa, and Gretel. But these characters were not based directly on the real children. The true VonTrap children from Georg's first marriage were Rupert, Agatha, Maria, Wner, Hedwig, Johanna, and Martina. The filmmakers chose to alter their names, ages, and even genders to better serve the film's storyline and emotional beats. For example, the character of Liesel is a 16-year-old girl who sings 16 going on 17, but in real life, the oldest child was Rupert, a man in his late 20s and already a doctor by the time they fled Austria. After Georg married Maria in 1927, they had 3 more children, Rosemarie, Eleanor, and Johannes, none of whom appear in the movie. Number 5. The VonTrap family had a passion for music. The movie portrays Captain VonTrap as someone who initially forbids music in the household, only to be slowly swayed by Maria and the children's charm. In real life, however, music was already at the heart of the VonTrap family long before Maria entered their lives. Both Georg and his first wife, Agatha, cherished music and passed that love on to their children. Singing together was a regular part of their family life, not something that needed to be introduced. Their musical talent wasn't a surprise discovery. It was a nurtured tradition. When the family faced financial hardship during the Great Depression, this love for music became their survival tool. They began performing publicly and eventually won a prestigious competition at the Salzburg Music Festival, much like in the film. Number 4. VonTrap and Maria married earlier than the movie portrayed. In The Sound of Music, Maria and Captain VonTrap marry just as the Nazi threat is rising in Austria, adding urgency and romance to their union. But in reality, their wedding happened over a decade earlier, on November 26, 1927. At the time, Maria was 22 and Georg was 47. And there was no political pressure or Nazi threat. Their marriage was based more on mutual care than immediate passion. Maria often said she married Georg not because she was in love, but because she loved the children and felt it was God's will. Romantic love blossomed later. The Nazi regime didn't begin to impact Austria until the late 1930s, long after their marriage and the birth of 3 more children. Number 3. Some of the VonTrap kids were omitted in the movie. The Sound of Music focuses on 7 VonTrap children, each with unique fictional names and personalities. But in real life, the family had 10 children. Captain Georg VonTrap had 7 kids: Rupert, Agathe, Maria, Wner, Hedwig, Johanna, and Martina, with his first wife, Agatha Whitehead. After her death, he married Maria Augusta Kutschera, and together they had 3 more children: Rosemarie, Eleonora and Johannes. These youngest siblings were completely left out of the film, likely to keep the storyline simple and the runtime manageable. Interestingly, the oldest real-life child, Rupert, was a fully grown man and a practicing doctor by the time the family fled Austria, far from the 16-year-old Liesel depicted in the movie. Number 2. Christopher Plummer didn't want to play Captain. Christopher Plummer's casting as Captain VonTrap seems like fate today, but he was far from enthusiastic about the role at first. Plummer initially rejected the part multiple times, feeling the character was too stiff and the story too sentimental for his taste. Other big names were considered: Bing Crosby, Yul Brynner, Sean Connery, but director Robert Wise was convinced Plummer was the right choice. Determined to win him over, Wise traveled to London and personally pitched the vision of a more layered, complex captain. He also promised that Plummer could collaborate on refining the character with the screenwriters. That convinced him. Eventually, Plummer signed on and gave a performance that blended charisma with restraint, helping anchor the movie's emotional weight. Ironically, despite his early resistance, his role became one of his most iconic. Number 1. 20th Century Fox was nearly bankrupt until The Sound of Music came to the rescue. Before The Sound of Music became a cinematic triumph, 20th Century Fox was in deep financial trouble. The studio had sunk over $44 million into the troubled production of Cleopatra, a film that ballooned far beyond its original $2 million budget. Although it earned some box office revenue, it wasn't enough to pull the studio out of crisis. Enter The Sound of Music. Initially viewed as a risky investment, since musicals were seen as outdated at the time, it stunned everyone when it became the highest-grossing film of 1965. By November 1966, it had even surpassed Gone with the Wind as the highest-grossing film of all time. The film's massive success not only revived public interest in musicals, but also saved Fox from bankruptcy. Which one shocked you the most? Was it the real escape, the miscast names, or the song that wasn't Austrian at all? Let us know in the comments.